Welcome to this webinar from Bsure. This is the second webinar in our 3-webinar series before summer. Today we're going to talk about how to find and clean up inactive accounts in your Entra ID. So let me introduce myself. I'm Olav Helland, one of the co-founders here in Bsure, and I've been managing users in Entra and Microsoft for a long time and have quite some experience with it. So we are basing this this series on our 5 recommended actions. We have arranged these in the order we recommend using when you start gaining insights through our app. Securing control over privileged accounts is, of course, the most important. So we discussed that in the first webinar. If you missed it, the recording is available on our website and on our YouTube channel. Today, we will talk about how to use Bsure to clean up inactive accounts and at the same time gain better control over who is actually assigned licenses in the organization. The next actions on the list will be covered in upcoming webinars before and after the summer. So let's take a look. What we often see is that around 40% of enabled users in Entra ID are in fact inactive. So by inactive, we mean users you haven't seen sign-ins from the last 90 days or users that have never signed in. So it might not be 40%. It's not exact for every organization. It could be 30, 50, 20, but we very often see something around that number. So what are the reasons for this? Very often it could be because of lacking identity lifecycle management processes. So we often talk about a joiner, mover, and leaver process. And there might be reasonable control over the employees because they probably come from an HR system or sent to an IAM tool and are created in the on-premises Active Directory or directly in Entra. But even if that is in place, the setup designed in the IAM tool may not reflect reality in the organization. So we have seen several examples of groups of employees or personas, if you like, who were assumed to work in a way that required accesses and licenses, but when looking at actual usage, perhaps only a small number have actually used their accounts. Many organizations also synchronize their users from the on-premises Active Directory and have been doing so for a very long time. And in the on-premises Active Directory, there might be a lot of legacy. So if the scoping of which users you synchronize to Entra is too broad, maybe you sync entire organizational units that you shouldn't, right? So we also see cases of that organizations synchronize more users to Entra than needed. So that's also a common reason. Also, unmanaged guest accounts. Guests are invited to join or contribute to a project, and they are given access to Teams or SharePoint sites. Many of them actually never show up. And those who do, they are very often not removed after the project is done. It's very common. So I have a friend or someone I know who works at a large consulting firm and is usually invited to Teams with the clients she works for. And when she did check how many organizations she still had access to, the number was 94. Most of those were old projects where the contract had ended years ago, but her guest account still had access. So should it be like that? Of course not. But it's very common. And external accounts is also often not as good handled as the employees. External accounts are typically consultants, hired-ins that get their own member account in your organization. But the processes for on and offboarding of those might not be as good as for the employees. You will probably also see quite a few forgotten test and admin accounts. These have been created ad hoc, at least the test accounts, and most organizations also find old admin accounts that shouldn't be there anymore. And also also resource accounts, which are not disabled, is also a reason for this high number of enabled accounts. A resource account is typically shared mailboxes, meeting rooms, and equipment mailboxes. When these are created in Exchange Online, a corresponding account is created in Entra ID. It gets a system-generated password, but it's a user like any other, and it can be attacked, for example, by using brute force. So Microsoft recommends to block sign-in for these, but we see many organizations have inadequate routines for that. So some might be disabled, but very often we see a lot of not disabled resource accounts. Many of the inactive users are, of course, assigned licenses. We often say that about 20% of the Microsoft 365 licenses in a tenant is typically unused. It's not 20 in every organization, but between 10 and 30 is very common. This is licenses that are not assigned to any users, so licenses you have in stock. Licenses assigned to inactive and disabled users. And we also have the overlapping licenses. This is often not a large issue, but it's a quick win if you find them, because typically it's a user that had an F3 license, for instance, and he got a new role in the organization and he was upgraded to a E3, but there's not good enough routines to remove the old license, and he keeps on having both. And if you upgrade licenses, it's another common thing. Let's say users with Power BI Pro is upgraded from E3 to E5, but the Power BI license is forgotten and not removed. So since E5 includes Power BI, you end up paying double. So why is it so important to clean up? This is a pyramid taken from page 60 of Microsoft's Digital Defense Report from October last year. The foundation of today's cybersecurity is protecting identities. It doesn't help much to have the latest firewalls and other scanning tools if you don't have control over all your users. In the report, Microsoft states, attackers don't break in, they log in. So it's about reducing the attack surface. The less unused accounts you have in your environment, the smaller the attack surface will be. Also, accounts that have never been used very often don't have MFA registered. And in most organizations, it's still the case that the first person who logs on to a new user account is prompted to register MFA. Very few have requirements that this must happen from a specific location or using, for example, a temporary access pass. So if one of these users' passwords are compromised, it's difficult to determine who actually used the account to register the MFA. And when you start the cleanup process, you'll also discover which existing processes haven't worked as intended. Often you'll see that the workflow setup in your IAM solution will need adjustments. So that was the start, and we'll jump over to demo our application. So let me share my browser. So here we are in Bsure Insights, our main dashboard. You'll get an overview of member users, guest users, and how many of them are active, inactive, and disabled. You'll also see very briefly here the potential savings on licenses. You'll see the cost you potentially could save monthly if you cleaned up all the unnecessary assigned licenses. We'll start jumping into the Microsoft licenses report to take a look. So on the left-hand side here, we see what licenses are in use or assigned. And on the right-hand side, we can see the potential cost savings. So this is the number and cost of unassigned licenses. And here we have the inactive, meaning licenses assigned to inactive users. And we also have licenses assigned to disabled users. We often recommend when you are going to clean up your environment to not start using the license reports, but use the users reports so you can remove all inactive users and not only those having licenses. But if your renewal date or true update with Microsoft is coming up soon, a quick win will be to just start removing licenses on inactive and disabled users before your renewal date. So we can look at the renewal dates by going to the subscription overview, and on the end date here, we will see every renewal date for every subscription. And the more you free up, the higher these columns in this graph will be. So we can see in August, in this case, we can count down quite a bunch of licenses in this demo environment. I talked briefly about overlapping licenses. I can show that very quickly. It's a common case here. So here are 139 users with E5, and they also have a Power BI Pro. So those 139, you can just remove them because the users here already have them. So if we wanted to start removing users based on what license they have, we can take a look at the inactive and disabled users, but we recommend using the drill down report for this. Can give a very brief example. Let's say we want to look at users that have never signed in, and it's more than, let's say, 3 months since they were created. And here you get the details in this report. So if you remove the licenses for these users, probably not much would happen. I have to say something about this last sign-in date. We base that on an attribute in Entra on the users that's called last successful sign-in date. And this property was introduced by Microsoft in December 2023. There are 2 other properties on the users in Entra called last sign-in date and last non-interactive sign-in. but those two don't say anything about the sign-in being successful or not. So we're using the last successful sign-in date property. So, but since it was introduced in 2023, there can be sign-in users in our reports that looks like they never have signed in, but they could have been signed in before December 23. But it's at least 1.5 years ago, so it shouldn't matter too much. Let's jump over to the users. And we can start with what's a low-hanging fruit is taking a look at guest users. We'll take a look at never signed in guests, which it's more than created more than 1 month ago. The likelihood of those users, those guests ever showing up is very small. So what we can do to get rid of these, by example, we could export this data to an Excel sheet. We get the document here with the user principal names. I can zoom in a little so you can see better. And if we go to Entra, there is a bulk, if you add all users and you have bulk operations, bulk delete, we can download a CSV template. And if we copy the user principal names for the guest user we want to test to delete, we can copy those, bring them over to this user template, save the CSV, upload the file, type yes, and submit. I'm not going to do that now because these guests just don't exist in my demo tenant. But after that job is run, you will find the deleted users here in this deleted users menu. And if you, for some reason, were to delete a user that shouldn't have been deleted, you have 30 days to restore it. So, and when you restore it, you will get back the licenses, accesses, and data of the user. Let's head back to the application. Also on the guest report, you can see in our demo data, we have quite a few guests from unmanaged domains like Gmail and Hotmail. If you don't want those types of guests in your organization, you can select all of them in using this domain type slicer, and you can export all of those and delete them separately. So let's head over to the more regular users or the member users. The low-hanging fruits in this one is to take a look at the resource accounts. So let's select the shared mailboxes, the meeting rooms, and the equipment mailboxes. We can see here that we have 9 active members. That's probably Teams meeting rooms and mailboxes that for some reason sign on. So let's see what licenses these have. I'm looking for licenses combined. There it is. Okay, there we go. So these are Teams meeting rooms, and they need to log on to be able to attend the meetings. And here we have 77 disabled member accounts, still resource accounts. So these are correctly configured, in my opinion. You could of course look after if any of these had licenses. They don't in this. So, but these 460 are the ones you should take a look at. These are never probably never signed in, and they are enabled. So let's take a look. So what you could do here is to export this list and find the correct PowerShell script and block sign-in for these members. I would include the user source because some of them might come from the on-premises Active Directory and some probably are created directly in the cloud. You could export everything at once, or you can select only the cloud users and take those and then select all the on-premises synced accounts. So this was the quick wins in the member reports. The big task when you start looking at inactive users in your organization is when you start looking at the regular employees, because you probably would need feedback from the organization, either from HR or from department managers in the different parts of your company, to determine whether a user should remain or not. So what you can do then is to make your filtering. We could start with the never signed in once again, and we can say the ones that have been created more than 3 months ago. Okay, we have 531. Okay, so how should we go about in the organization with this? So what I would do is to pick the display name of the user. We'll take the department. If you use company or other attributes, you can of course choose those as well. Let's also take the manager. We'll see the dates created, last sign-in, and how many days ago that was. We'll bring with us information about the users being licensed or not. So we'll find the licenses combined. We'll also take the user source so we know where to deal with the user. And well, if it's an on-premises user, it's also nice to bring along the on-premises SAM account name so you can, if you want to run a script in on-premises ID, then you need that. So let's try to make an export of this data again, but this time we'll use the summarize data option. The users in your Power BI that have access to the Bsure Insights workspace can use this export with live connection. It can be quite handy if you're going to work over time with cleaning up users. So let's see. I need to enable the content, and it prompts me to log on. Now it actually signs in towards the semantic model in the Power BI workspace. So what we could do is to simply add an extra column, delete question mark, and then we could sort on maybe department. Let's see, and then we could have the share this Excel sheet with the different departments and have them verify if which users can be deleted or not, or add a comment. And then you as a IT consultant or engineer, you filter on the ones you want to remove, take these, go to the bulk delete them, and when they are deleted from Entra and the Bsure app is updated with that information, you can go to this refresh all, and it will refresh, and if the user is in fact deleted, it will disappear from your working list. So that's a way of dealing with this in practice. All right, so that was more or less what we had. I don't know if there are any questions. If not, that's it for today, and thank you for attending, and we'll share the recordings of this on our website and YouTube channel.